The Silly Goose Gang Podcast.
So we are back in episode 64 of the Silly Goose Gang Podcast, and we're genuinely delighted to be joined today by CJ Ortiz, the Metal Motivator from the University of Badassery, which isn't easy to say in a Scottish accent, I've just realised.
No.
But CJ, thank you for joining in. Too many rolling R's for me, but thanks for joining us today, CJ.
Man, it's awesome to be here. I remember when Mac first mentioned he was going to be on your podcast, and then he talked to me about it after he was on your podcast. And I remember saying something like, well, I'm next then. And we just kind of laughed it off because I was saying it in jest, and then literally I'm next. Well, not the exact next episode, but next after him. But I appreciate just the fact that you guys are interested. I have my own quote unquote audience for where the Metal Motivator moniker comes from. And so that, reaching a different demographic than what Mac and I reach together. But and if you guys want to talk Mac all day long, I'll talk Mac all day long.
No,
because the reason why I say that is because I've been doing what I've been doing for so many years. I'm one of the early guys for social media influencers. So for YouTube, Facebook, for MySpace days, Metal Motivation started. So this year will be my 12th year for Metal Motivation. But again, it has its own followers. So I've done multiple podcasts and things and coaching groups and one-on-one motivational speak, all that kind of stuff over the years. And nothing has arrested my life as it has since when Mac and I first connected. The trajectory was just a steady incline, and things just really started to go up radically once he was shut down last year, as I'm sure he told you guys. Because of COVID, because he was traveling all the time. And so now we've got our own coaching squad, which is now we're 3 short of 600 members on the Keep the Blaze Alive coaching squad, and that's paid members, right? At 3 levels. So that's not a joke, and we've of course done the University of Badassery podcast, which started actually, if you don't mind me telling the backstory to me.
No, on you go. Oh no, you go, sir.
So I was still in Texas at the time. I'm in North Carolina now, the same state that he's in. We're about an hour and a half away from each other. And I was in Texas at the time. So this was 2016. So Mac was still early on in his social media growth. And he's not, he will tell you, he goes, he was not social media savvy. In fact, he only got on social media because someone told him that someone else was impersonating him on Facebook. So he got a Facebook account in order to confront that individual. So then from there, he developed his Instagram, and his Instagram began to grow. So when he and I contacted with each other, he was probably 40 or 50,000 followers at the time. And so now he's up past 500,000. But at that time, he was posting, some different things. And one day I just saw a post of his, and it was him, because what he used to do is get rent-a-cars whenever he would travel. He'd get a rent-a-car, but he'd get the closest thing that the rental car company had to a hot rod. You know what I mean? Like if they had a Camaro or something like that. And so he would then get this out to some deserted road, and he would start just screeching and smoking those tires while playing loud heavy metal and then filming himself. So I wrote on the first post that I saw from him, I wrote, "It's good to see somebody motivated by metal." And so he looked down, he said, he told me afterwards, he said, I looked down, I saw this comment, "Good to see somebody motivated by metal." And the handle was Metal Motivator. So he was like, hell yeah, I'm following that dude. So that's where it started. Because at the time, again, there wasn't a lot of people doing, saying or positioning themselves this way. It's grown exponentially just over the last 2 to 3 years. It's grown exponentially.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where it started. So we would kind of go back and forth on each other's posts. He would share something of mine, I'd share something of his. So to have, and Mac's not that way. He is not one to share anybody's anything. He's very picky. So for him to share what I was doing was because of the attitude and because everything was metal. So to him, it was like, hell yeah. There's plenty of people that are out there with beards, muscles, and tattoos using profanity that are motivating, right? Just a bunch of echoes. They're just echoes, not many voices. You want to be a voice. You don't want to be an echo. You don't want to sound like everybody else, interview like everybody else, do everything like everybody else. Stand the fuck out. Differentiate yourself. Differentiate or die. And so he was like, okay, yeah, I meant the Metal Motivator, talking about some stuff, because I don't have to necessarily do what these other people do, because it's based on the metal type of approach to life. So he shares some stuff of mine. I would share stuff of his. And so we just kind of go back and forth. Eventually we exchanged phone numbers. So we would kind of text each other. And then I told him, I said, hey, dude, listen, I'm moving back to North Carolina. And he said, hell yeah. And so February 2017, I moved back to North Carolina. Later on that year, probably late spring, I finally made it out to his neighborhood to meet him and Rebecca, his wife, a few other people there at the pub he usually frequents. And that's kind of where it started. And then a couple months or so later, I told him, I said, listen, I said, dude, I want to start a podcast called the Metal Excellence Podcast. And the idea behind it was just to do everything with an attitude and a spirit of excellence. Don't suck. Because I finish every one of my videos by saying, and remember, in whatever you do, don't suck. Metal up. So I wanted to, just have something about that spirit of excellence. Just be great at everything that you do. And I said, I want to interview you first, man. He said, okay. So I came down to his house. It was the first time I was at his house. We set up in his office, and it went really well. And so while I was getting that one ready and I published it, I was thinking, you know what? He would make a great co-host. Now, again, I'm catching him early on. You couldn't just snag him nowadays to do something like that early on. And so I said, dude, I'd love for you to be the podcast. He said, I should be the co-host of the podcast. So after that, we started doing Metal Excellence, and we did several people. But because he was involved, it started to bring in all of these other people that were not my audience. It was more his people, and they didn't necessarily like heavy metal. They just wanted anything that had to do with him. So eventually I said, Mac, I think we need to change the name of the podcast. And he says, I think you're right. I said, I just don't want to limit it. I don't want people who are, it doesn't mean we can't stop talking about metal and be metal and do all that. It's just not lead with that. He said, cool. I said, well, I have a name. It's something that I've used for a long time called the University of Badassery. And it's based on an article I wrote, which has a quote in it that says, if you want to be a badass, you have to kick ass. And the first ass you need to kick is your own. Right. So that's the University of Badassery. I said, so let's call it that. He goes, I dig it. So we settled on that. And that's how that season began to go. And so by about 2018, I started to say to him, listen, because I'd done my own coaching groups before. I said, Mac, you might want to consider maximizing your online, monetizing it more so, your online presence, and outside of just, sponsored by this particular gun maker or Invader Coffee or what have you. I said, we need to monetize it in a different way. He says, what's your thought? I said, start a coaching group. So he always liked the idea, but we literally talked about it for 2 years. But he couldn't do it because he could barely do anything in his life. His life was organized down to 15-minute increments. He was planning how he was going to spend 15 minutes 2 weeks ahead of time. That's how busy he was, because he was constantly on the road. Right. So he's constantly having to take all of this gear, guns, and all this stuff to all of these cities, do these things, hurry back to make a living. Right. So he's constantly on the road. And by the end of 2019, He was telling me, he says, dude, I don't know how much longer I can keep up this pace, this schedule. It's not good for your family.
Yeah.
You know, he's got chores he wants to do and you know, things to take care of at home. He doesn't have his kids, and his kids belonged with him. They're with him now. I think he might have brought that up when he talked to you guys.
Yep.
That was huge. I mean, huge. And I love his kids. But he couldn't do it because in the court, he couldn't justify it because he's out of town all the time. So the greatest blessing that could have happened to him was the coronavirus. I hate to say it, but you know, it's a blessing and a curse. For some person, it's the worst thing in the world. For another person over here, it was the best thing to ever happen because he was shut down. And so that made him open now. He's now open to do something. So in fact, this within the next few days will be our year anniversary from starting the Keep the Blaze Alive coaching squad. And so starting with nothing, we're now, like I said, about 3 persons away from 600 members, and it's just going to keep growing. So we've done that for a year. It's been tremendous. The Facebook community that's grown up around it is tremendous. It has a life of its own. If Mac and I quit our coaching squad today, those people would stay with each other. It's like a church almost, you know, just this community of people. And we just had our first live event 2 weeks ago. And it was a 3-day event. The first day was with speakers. So we had another Delta guy there talking. We had Dr. Trevor Wilkins, who we also just had on our podcast, who's a therapist and ex law enforcement officer who deals with PTSD, anger issues, stress, high stress jobs, that sort of thing. So those guys spoke. And then for the next 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, we had Mac's Sentinel course that he does. And then at night, we were hanging out at the pub. It was fantastic. It was like a retreat. It was amazing. But we didn't stop there. And the great thing that's happening now is what we're about to release on May 1st, which is something that I came up with a long time ago, but I finally got us to the place where we could do it. And it's going to be a new reality video series focused on Pat Mack called The Vlog. People like The Vlog. Yeah, man, The Vlog. I don't know if I like that name. I don't give a damn. The Vlog. Vlog is like vlog is a nondescript, right? It's like saying book or blog or podcast. But if you say the book, the podcast, the vlog, then you're taking ownership of a category. So doesn't mean that, you know, this is the blog, but for us, it is the vlog. Just like University of Badassery, we got to say that tongue in cheek. We're not badasses. So one of the things we're doing now with our podcast is we're going to get away from the interview thing. We'll do them, you know, as if the situation arises and it makes sense, we'll do it. But we want to start focusing on history. So like we did the Lewis and Clark, we did just the endurance. We're getting ready for another one. It's going to be really, really awesome. I can't say what it is, but it's going to be badass. So us talking about history, it helps to differentiate us from the people in our space who are interviewing the same people. You know what I mean? It's the same guys over and over, and they'll be, and like there's a few guys like a David Goggins. You know, guys know who David Goggins is?
Oh yeah.
Like a David Goggins or a Tim Kennedy, whatever, which are amazing guys. You know, they're doing fantastic things. They're inspiring millions of people, but they've told their story 1,000 freaking times. You know? So it's like people are like, you need to get David Goggins on. No, we don't. You've heard his story. You know what I mean? Enjoy everything that he's already done. He needs, you know, he's got his thing going. We don't need to do that. So for us, we've never been able to have a guest come on our show where the banter between the three of us is as good as Mac and myself.
Okay.
Because we're both we're type A personality, very extroverted in a lot of ways, and gift of gab. You know, so it works really well. So what we do is we both go away separately and soak our heads in something like Lewis and Clark or the endurance, and we don't talk to each other about it for like a couple of months. And then we come together and just spill out all over each other. And so that's the University of Badassery, because we're just kind of going back and highlighting badasses of history. So we figured it's better, works better with the title, you know, that kind of thing. And again, helps to differentiate us. And I mean, again, it's tongue in cheek. We're not out here saying we're badasses. It's just something you say, you know what I mean? It's not a big deal. But with this vlog is what people really want, because, you know, Mac has had, I don't know how many, it's just under a dozen, but he's had several reality TV show offers. And there's a few of them that actually they recorded, you know, the pilot episode of it, but they've never been picked up. And so I've talked to Mac about it before when I started to talk to him initially about doing something like this. And I said, why would you even want to be on TV? He said, well, because it would give me the bigger platform to reach more people. I said, but here's the problem. The reality show may not give you your platform. They may say, well, we want you to go and look for antiques and get them priced. They may want you to go, you know, work with people who are, you know, putting together hot rods, or, you know what I mean? They're not necessarily going to use you for the purpose you want to be used for. And those son of a bitches are going to own your content.
Yeah.
You know, so we need to do it ourselves. And the premise behind it was, I said, the game changer is Joe Rogan, because what Joe did is he got a bigger deal than just about anybody on any reality show, you know, outside of maybe when Trump was doing it. He's probably got the biggest deal, like $100 million to do his podcast. Well, he's controlling his show.
Yeah.
There's not Hollywood producers and Hollywood companies that are dictating his content. It's his platform. He created it. There's no reason to change it. Somebody just wanted to own it exclusively on their space, and that was Spotify. So I said, Mac, let's not think like we got to get a deal with National Geographic or the Discovery Channel or TLC or something like this. We just got to do what we do extremely well. Do it on YouTube, and someone will probably want exclusive rights to it. You know what I mean? To have it only accessible through their music. If not, we'll still monetize the hell out of it because of YouTube, because it'll get so many views, and people will come from that into our coaching squad. They'll buy merchandise, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a win-win proposition throughout. Now, my second son, is a director, cinematographer, editor, all of that stuff. And he is a pro. I mean, a pro. So he shot it. We shot the first episode, which will air on May 1st. I just released a trailer yesterday. We'll do another trailer before the 1st of May, and then it will post. We've already shot the second episode, which was our live meetup. And so this is cool. This has got drone footage and multiple cameras, and it's badass. It's like it looks like reality TV, literally like reality TV. And it's not Mac just doing all kinds of badass stuff. There's stuff in here about Mac struggling with like his administrative stuff on his computer. I mean, but it's a side of Mac you never ever see. He is going to do his workout stuff. He is going to do the stuff he normally does, but you're seeing just Mac take you through his day, take you through his life, take you through the events of his life, the happenings, and you're going to get the attitude, you're going to get the lifestyle, you're going to get the culture, you're going to get all of these things in, you know, anywhere from 18 minutes to 30 minutes. If we need to go longer, we'll go longer. So we've got lots of different episode ideas, but that's the next thing that's going to happen. So that's the trajectory of just an Instagram post in 2016 saying, good to see somebody motivated by metal.
I wish I should have had a notepad here. There's so many things I wanted to go back to. That's also, I think that's the award for the longest opening comment.
Go ahead, man.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll be quiet from here on out.
What I love is it seems that you and Pat just gel together perfectly. It's you seem to have the one thing that I would say. So as you were saying, I listened to your the podcast you were just talking about, Dr. What's the guy?
Trevor Wilkins.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was listening to that today, and you were talking about Patsy. He's been around the world, in more ways than one. So it seems like Pat's a kind of guy who would sniff out somebody who's full of shit instantly. Yeah. So the fact that you clearly have his ear means that how that shows how much he respects you and trusts in you. So it seems like you're like the creative mind, and Pat's Pat's crazy.
I was gonna say, yeah, force of nature.
Yeah. No, you're very perceptive, because that's exactly what happened. Because it's taken. I mean, there was one conversation we had a couple years or so ago at the pub, and we were talking about business stuff, and he was talking about trust issues, about people who burned him and that sort of thing. And I said, well, I get the feeling you're saying this for my benefit. And he goes, yes, I am. But we went from that to where now we're business partners now. And besides being just great friends. But yeah, he'll often say, dude, I just tell Rebecca, whatever CJ says we're doing. Because he just, he's just seen everything from the podcast to the coaching squad to all of these things just take a life of their own, but not by chance, because he sat through the creative sessions with me where everything was intentional, everything was written out, everything was planned. So not to, you do your best to leave as much not up to chance as you possibly can. And so, yeah, it is a tremendous thing to have his trust to where he'll go into business with you and trust you with his life. He'll let me I have access to all of his accounts or anything. I could go in there and shut things down if and he's been hacked, right? He's been hacked, but I have access to these things. I would sooner, and I mean this with all my heart, because I'll tell the squad this, because here's the thing you got to understand. People love this guy. And in some ways, it gets a little weird. You know what I mean? We're talking about fanboy. It's like, I tell him, I said, it's like this, Mac. Your fans, some of your fans are like, if you were to fart, they would kick the door in to come in and smell it. Yeah. And that's fucking weird. You know what I mean? That's weird. Yeah. So he's, he wears a gun walking around his house, and you ask him why? Because people have creeped by his house. People have walked up into his driveway. Fans.
Yeah.
People have wasted, some of his evening. He would never say that because he loves the people who support him. I'm saying this. This is me saying this. He does not say this. Okay, so that make that clear. Mac loves his supporters. I, on the other hand, will talk shit about him. So they, the ones that just are obnoxious. Yeah. They'll come and they'll take up, his evening. They get drunk. They're at the pub. They see him. They're starstruck, and they want to come down and take pictures and ask him questions and all this sort of stuff. He's there with his wife, and she understands. But that's kind of the way, that it is. So I know that everybody has tremendous respect. So the good fans, which is the majority of them, the good fans have just tremendous respect for them. All the members of our coaching squad have tremendous respect for them. But I tell them, listen, nobody has more respect for him than I do. I listen to every podcast interview he does. Not even his fans do that. Not because I don't know everything already, but because I want to know what people think. I want to know how they perceive him. I want to know how he answers everything, because we're building an empire. I have to know. I'm in charge of all communication, so it's important to know these things. And I said, I would sooner put a knife to my throat before I disrespect, betray, do anything to bring reproach on anything that he does or anything that we do together. You know, so, you know, we're both a year apart. He's 56, I'm 55. We've been on the planet long enough. I've been online, you know, for him, he's seen a lot, you know, Mac has seen a lot. So there is no ego in that man. The guy that you see on screen doing anything online is the exact same guy that you see in person. Once he and I start drinking pints and bourbon, we will be the loudest people in the pub, because he's literally that way all the time. There is no guile in him. There's no dishonesty in him. He's one of the most, you would think it doesn't make sense, but he's one of the most humble people you'll ever meet. He is confident, very confident, but that's not arrogant. There's a difference, right? Yeah, to be confident in yourself 100%. And what you can do, but he's not arrogant and he's not boastful. He's very generous, very hospitable, very serving. With Mac and I going somewhere, it's an issue of, you know, who's going to go through the door first? After you, no, after you, no, after you, no, after you, no, after you. All right, let Rebecca go first. So it's, you know, it's that kind of thing. But, you know, he's 56, I'm 55. And so with my background, I wasn't around the world killing bad guys. But I've been online for so long and have had so many accolades thrown at me, well wishes, and people expressing thanks and appreciation for what you've done, that I literally don't care if I ever hear it again. I don't want to write "You're welcome" another time. So I have to say, my pleasure. You bet. You're welcome. Happy to do it. Because, you know, but for them, it's I understand, but, you know, you don't want to keep saying the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. So like people will, when we're out and about, people will say, dude, can I get a picture? I'll always say tongue in cheek, I mean it, but I don't mean it. I say, no, man, there's enough pictures of me on the internet. You know, the internet's got enough of me. You know, they're like, really? I'm like, no, let's take the picture. But seriously, how many more of these can you have? I mean, we don't need that many. Like, how many more of the, you know, when girls take pictures of themselves, selfies in the bathroom, like 3 of them, you know, with duck face. How much of that shit do you need on your profile? You know what I mean? There's like a whole shitload of it on there. So all of that is to say that it is an amazing thing to have his trust. But again, I'm sorry, I'm doing the monologue again.
No, this is one of the beautiful things about talking to somebody who, you know, does a podcast or talks, you know, a lot for a living. They're so easy. I mean, I'm sure you've done podcasts at some point where you're maybe speaking to somebody and you have to drag a conversation out of them.
Yeah.
And then you get, you know, the CG Ortiz of the world, and it's like, okay, go.
Well, what's funny though, is that there wouldn't be a podcast if it was just Mac.
Yeah.
Mac will talk to somebody who interviews him just fine, but he's not going to get on there himself and start interviewing people. You know what I mean? Just, that's not him. And he's not going to get in there and do it solo. So like sometimes you get the weird fans of Mac. They'll get on because they don't know me. And so they'll see clips or something, or they'll watch the podcast on YouTube and it's got me and Mac. And so I'm talking as much as Mac is, sometimes maybe even more. And Mac's perfectly fine with that. I got no bigger supporter than Pat Mac himself. Because I'll go off sometimes. Like when we're sitting around taking a break on podcasting and we're eating food at his house, and I'll just start going off on something. And because I used to be a preacher, so I get preachy, you know. And he just goes, dude, I love it when you start preaching. I love it when you start preaching. So he's my biggest supporter, man. But some of his fans hate me because I'm set over against their idol.
Do you get people, you know, you're talking about these weird fans. Do you get people who try and get close to you to try and get close to Pat?
Yeah, on occasion I do. Yeah. And I know there's a lot of people who will reach out to me because they feel like it's one step closer,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So they'll ask me the questions. Hey, what holster is he using in this video? I have no fucking clue. I don't know. So it's, yeah, they just love the guy, man. And I you know, and I
We love him.
completely understand it.
Yeah,
I
we
love
love
him too, man.
Yeah, man. But we're not.
He's a good
we're
guy.
not- we're not weird. Well, I mean, we're definitely both definitely weird, but we're not weird.
We're weird, but in a different way, yeah. What I was
Very
going to say, what I was going to say is we decided to do it the other way. We used Mac to get close to you, CJ, because we're actually weird fans of yours. That's what we've done just to change it up.
Dude, flattery will get you everywhere with me, man.
Yeah. No, it's it's a really cool dynamic you guys have. So on a much lesser scale, me and Ali work a similar kind of way.
Yeah.
Ali's definitely the brains, and I'm the brawn, and I like to talk, but it wouldn't work without each other. It wouldn't be a podcast. It just wouldn't work. So yeah. I mean, what's interesting is you said interview quite a few times.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that me and Ali were determined that we were never going to do was interviews. There wasn't going to be a list of questions,
Conversation.
It was conversation. We may have,
I agree.
Normally with somebody we maybe don't know, or somebody who doesn't do a lot of talking, we would have some bullet points. So in case of emergency, don't go. You go. So you did this, and then you go off. But with you, we don't have to do that. So we have nothing. There's no notes. It's just let's fucking see what happens.
Yeah, that Mac's that way too. I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, when I used to tell people about what's the key to a good podcast, you guys heard of the phrase "fly on the wall"?
Yeah.
So when you think, oh man, I'd love to be a fly on the wall when those two people talk, right? That you could listen in on a conversation. That's the key to a good podcast.
Yes.
Something that people say, oh, I'd love to be a fly on the wall when they talk. Because a conversation like that is not going to be a list of questions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And and it's like some people need a script, some people need, whatever. I see some people work really, really hard, and look at some even popular people on their podcast, but they'll do like 20-minute shows, and it's super user friendly, and they have their formula, and they always finish with what are your 3 favorite songs, and what's your 3 favorite foods, and if you could do life all over again, where would you, that kind of stuff. And they just keep pumping it out and pumping it out and pumping it out and pumping it out and pumping it out. I feel bad for them, and here's why. Because my professional background is marketing. I've done it for 30 years. So when I teach in marketing seminars, I'll teach on branding and the importance of having an idea-driven brand. This goes for a podcast. This goes for anything. An idea-driven brand. If you don't have a strong idea, which is the abstract thing that's not seen, if you don't have a strong idea driving what it is that you do in business or a project, then you are like a champion surfer who is trying to catch a wave on a freshwater lake, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you get anywhere, doesn't matter that you're a champion surfer on a freshwater lake. The only way you're going to move that surfboard is if you paddle really hard, right? But put that same surfer on an ocean, and it's a different story. Why? Because he needs a wave to ride. Having an idea-driven brand will drive you. It'll drive, the mission and the positioning of your particular business. And so when you don't have it, you have to paddle really hard. And so if you look out amongst all the social media influencers, all the podcasters, all that stuff, authors and speakers, what do you see? A whole lot of paddling.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody, they just show up, posting and more interviews. They're like, this is episode 567. It's like, okay, what's different about you? What's the idea behind what you're doing? And so I define branding as when you incarnate an idea. When an idea becomes flesh, like it's, from a lot of the things that I say to my audience, like metal up and all these things, people can't separate the phrase from the person. Like some people will often write a comment and they'll say, hey brother, I was, had this challenge the other day at work, and you know what I mean? I was going to give in to what I always do. And then I thought for a second, what would CJ do? And that's what I did. Now, truth be told, who the hell knows what I would do? Maybe I fly off the handle and do even worse than that guy would do. But the point is that how he perceives me is because of how he perceives the idea that I incarnate. Just like with Mac, you can't separate "get you some" or the other things that he says. You can't separate that from the man.
Yeah. It's
So
funny.
it's an attitude.
Me and Chris have started just over pretty much since we had Pat on. Every so often we'll send videos to each other with both of us just going basic dude stuff when we're doing something. You can't help yourself, and you even have to put on the gruff voice to make it sound more Pat. But like when we're doing,
I think we've even sent it where I think we've sent something, something's basic dude stuff, and then in commas is like Pat Mac voice.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's
Well, so like with you guys, because I do a lot of consulting. So if I was to be consulting with you guys, I would say to you right off the bat, I would say, okay, these two guys are very engaging. They give you an open forum. It's a great fly on the wall kind of conversation, but they're Scottish. How many podcasters are Scottish? Well, not many in the States, which is where you need to be burning it up. And I'm sure you are.
Yeah, we are.
The more you target the US and that particular audience, the more you're going to stand out. Right. So therefore you can do a lot of things others are already doing because you'll be excused for it because you're from Scotland.
Yeah.
Just like in the British invasion in the early 60s, there was one Beatles and a Rolling Stones, but then a lot of other similar looking sounding bands could get in under the door so long as they were British.
Yeah.
Right. So then the same thing started to happen in the States. And then once you started to get these shaggy haired kind of bands in the States, it was already wearing itself out and it was about to make the change into psychedelic and, that kind of thing. But for that while there, you're able to get something through to establish the brand. What always determines who's the brand is who's ever first in a new category. So, and how you know that is because you'll use a brand name for a category. Like in the US, if somebody cuts their finger, they want a Band-Aid. Band-Aid, right? Which is made by Johnson & Johnson, which makes all kinds of products and stuff. So Johnson & Johnson makes Band-Aid. But that's not what a Band-Aid is. A Band-Aid is a name of a particular brand of adhesive bandage.
Yes.
That's what it is. It's the name of an adhesive. So the actual category is adhesive bandage.
Yeah.
Right? But there's several companies that make adhesive bandages. There's Curad and there's other ones, right? There's generic ones at your grocery store. You can get all sorts of brands of adhesive bandage. So why do people still call it Band-Aid? Why do they say, hey, do you have a Band-Aid? They don't say, hey, do you have adhesive bandage? They don't say, hey, do you have a facial tissue? My nose is running. Listen, do you have a Kleenex?
Kleenex,
Right? So they're using particular brand names to describe actual categories. You're going to ship something to somebody, you say, I'll FedEx it to you.
Yeah.
When your brand is a verb, you've made it, right? When your brand is now used as a verb, or if I say, could you Xerox me? Yeah. Xerox is the name of a copy company. It's not, it's called what do they call it? It's called I don't even know what the hell it's called. It's a copy machine.
Yeah. A fax machine? A Xerox fax?
Yeah. So you say
Yeah.
you just say Xerox this for me, which means make a copy. I'm going to Xerox that. No, you're using an actual company name to describe something. So that's branding. That's pure branding. So it's branding is not something that's seen. It's not a logo. It's not when your website matches the decals on your service truck. Branding is not all the labels on the soup cans in the grocery store. It's not all the cereal boxes or soft drinks. That's not branding. Branding is something that happens in the mind. It is a piece of mental real estate that you as an individual podcast or whatever you are owns in the mind of the marketplace. And so whatever that you can do, marketing really, all marketing is dramatizing in every creative way possible, dramatizing and communicating your competitive mental angle. Whatever is your strong differentiating idea, that's your competitive mental angle. That's what's the two-edged sword that pierces through all the other brands and gets a place inside the marketplace. If you can be there first, they'll use you for the name of the category. But if you can penetrate that, your competitive mental angle, that's your brand. Anything you do to communicate that differentiating idea, that competitive mental angle, is marketing. Sales and all of that stuff is the end result. If you're really good at what you do, it's like at this point, people would buy dog food from Mac. Right?
Yeah.
Even though he's got nothing to do with dog food, he's got nothing to, it's not what he does for a living. He doesn't own a dog food company, but if he said, hey, buy this dog food, they're going to buy it. Because you look at the poster, like, what shoes are you wearing? What pants are you wearing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They want to know everything that he's wearing. So
people ask me that, but it's so they can buy the opposite. They don't want to wear.
Yeah, right. So it's that sort of thing where if people know you, like you, and trust you, they'll buy anything from you. They'll share you. They'll spread the word. Because we're in the most powerful space we've ever been in history. If social media had been around as long as advertising and marketing had been around, let's say about 100 years, then all the rules that govern marketing and advertising and copywriting would be different. Because advertising, marketing, and copywriting is based on the fact that you can't talk individually to somebody face to face and know who you're targeting. Right. That's why when they send you the marketing letters and things in the mail, they try to make it look personal.
Yeah.
So you'll open it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why? Because they can't do this. So if they can't do this, then they have to try and create personalism. So you're beginning with this podcast that you have in this space, which is personal. So whenever I'll teach on this stuff, if you think about social media, media means broadcast. That's what media means. The word media means to broadcast something, right? And so you have mainstream media, right? BBC, ABC, CBS, mainstream, New York Times, right? These are mainstream media. Then during the 90s, we saw the birth of alternative media, which is like cable news.
Yep.
Now cable news is just as much mainstream media as mainstream media is. So social media means broadcasting is done socially, which means no longer from an outlet. Social media means broadcasting is now done person to person. Right. And that's a great way for ideas to spread. So if you imagine, for example, prior to social media, trying to do what you're doing.
No, yeah, impossible.
Oh, no, no, definitely.
Waiting for somebody to stumble on you, never going to happen. Because like with my thing, when I do metal motivation, which is heavy metal, it's motivation and inspiration for people who love heavy metal. Right. So it's like Tony Robbins meets Metallica.
I like
so
it.
It's a very specific audience. Right. But nobody's going to sit down and search for that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So metal motivation needed social media where you could create a viral effect. So look at it this way. Prior to social media, it's like standing on the street corner in Times Square in New York City with COVID trying to infect people. Won't get a lot because people are moving by. Then take that same person with COVID and put them on a packed commercial airliner. And now it spreads, right? Because it's a contained audience. Social media is the internet contained because you have to have an account to be on it. Instagram, Facebook, etc. So now ideas can spread like viruses can spread. Don't we say about a video, it went viral?
Viral.
Yeah.
Right? It spread because it's broadcasting is from person to person. So long as you're thinking that way, then when it comes to show topics that you do, guests that you bring on, posts and clips or things that you create, you're now thinking in terms of what would cause people to A, engage with my content, and then B, share it with somebody else. And then if you can think through who your avatar is, you ever heard that phrase, avatar?
Yep.
Your ideal listener. Who's your ideal listener? Who's the person that's perfect for the Silly Goose Gang podcast? Who is that person? Sit down and write it out. What do they like? What do they watch? What are they passionate about? What do they eat? What do they read? What do they subscribe to? What do they follow? Who do they follow? Find out all of these things, and then you can start to promote your show to what, is right now a ubiquitous space. And just put it out there because you're able to target. So when I go in and promote Metal Motivation, I'll go into Facebook's ad manager and it'll allow you to layer your audience interests. So I'll start out with the first one. I'll put in Metallica, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, all of the big bands, right? But then it allows you to layer it. So it'll put a little phrase right under all those band names I put in. It'll say, also add these items to what you just said. In other words, I can make sure they like those, and they're going to have to like another bunch of things. Because if I just put Metallica or something up there, then there might be some people who, because of Metallica's last tour, happen to go to a concert with a friend of theirs. They don't really care about it, and they just happen to follow the page, and they're not really metalheads. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I want to make sure I'm talking to somebody who's hardcore about metal and hardcore about motivation. Right? So I'll go and put all the big bands on layer one. Then it says they must also like this as a qualifier. So I'll put in then some other bands, some like heavy metal online sites like Blabbermouth or like heavy metal news sites, individual singers or players from famous bands. Because if they follow Metallica and they follow the lead singer of Megadeth, they're a serious metalhead, right? So I've got these two layers. They must like both. And it could be any one, because I put like Metallica, Priest, Slayer, Pantera up here, but then I also put James Hetfield, Dave Mustaine, Bruce Dickinson, Blabbermouth, blah, blah, blah. So it could be any combination, but they must like something up here and something up here. But that doesn't stop there. They say, get another layer, must also like. And I'll put Tony Robbins, Think and Grow Rich, all of these different motivational books and motivational speakers. And then I add another layer where they follow specific motivational sites like Positive Attitude and Daily Positive, and which is nothing but posting memes and quotes every day. So I've got 4 layers, 2 of metal and 2 of motivation. So how serious does my ad copy need to be? Not much.
Yeah.
I just got to put my name up there. Just says Metal Motivation. Somebody's like, what in the hell? How did they know? Dude, I love metal and I love motivation. I'm following that shit. It's targeting. Social media, everybody gets bent out of shape about the privacy issues, Facebook sharing your data. They all know your data. They're watching your behaviors, blah, blah, blah. Hell yeah, they are. And use it to your advantage. to give them something that's going to enhance and equip their life. So that's how I built my following, was just knowing who my avatar was, targeting them. So where I just put a little ad, all I put my little ad, all it says is daily inspiration for motivated people who love heavy metal. That's all it says. And then it has this chick. And this is another thing is, dude, I've got like studio quality photos of myself. I've got photos of me speaking live that are fantastic. And so Facebook will allow you, when you run your ads, this is it's just turned into a marketing seminar, but who gives a fuck? but Facebook will give you different options. You can test like different images on the same ad. So you can run an ad with like 6 different images and see which one for a couple of days performs the best. Then get rid of the other ones and keep the one that works. Well, I've been running this image of this heavy metal girl, black hair, and she's just doing like this. And I've run for 12 years, I've run that chick. And I've tried all of my best shots, all of my best photos. Nothing I have ever done ever comes close to her. Nothing. And there's one simple reason for it. It's not because she's the most beautiful woman in the world. It has nothing to do with that. The reason is because she represents them. Whereas if it's me showing me to someone they don't know, it doesn't work, right? If I'm putting my ad in front of somebody that knows me, yeah. But I don't have the viral effect that a Mac has, right? So Mac doesn't necessarily need to target people. He just needs to put out content. It's going to spread by itself, right? But guys like you and me are not in that situation. So I have to then, I'm giving them, everything is about them. The ad that they see, daily inspiration for motivated people who love heavy metal. There's no mention of me in that. And there's an image of a person, a generic heavy metal motivated person, which matches them. It's all about them. Why? Because people don't put up defenses for personal interest. I don't know the person who doesn't receive a compliment or won't take a $100 bill from me. Right? Who puts up a defense for that? They don't. So plunge your knife in the soft underbelly. Don't try to go through the tortoise shell. Plunge it in the soft underbelly, right? Because that's when you'll be able to stick it into the market that you're trying to reach. And so, you know, for me, it's not really that difficult. It's finding what you're about, that strong differentiating idea, find who your target audience is, and find out, okay, what's the best way for me to communicate what Silly Goose Gang is about and the Scottish flavor to it to an American audience. And that goes for Canada and Australia, et cetera. But you just know that you're going to stand out more.
Yes. CG, you're a fucking genius. You got the job. You got the job. This
is a sales pitch.
So me and Ali have actually been saying for a while that we could be doing with somebody, ideally somebody who's young and doesn't want a lot of money. Who really understands social media algorithms and how to make all this click. So we've always said, so we feel that we probably, you know, with the guests that we've had, we would say, you know, we should probably be getting a bigger audience, but we don't know how to target that audience, which is our problem. And we don't really have any specific area that we're talking about.
Right.
The only thing we said in the beginning was, you know, we have a lot of friends who fight. You know, we don't want it to be a fight podcast, and that was all we said. But we generally just said, let's speak to as many interesting people as will speak to us. Right. And what happened was, a lot of people, you know, I'm sure Pat McNamara, I'm sure Clint Emerson, right. You know, I'm sure these guys are getting dozens of requests daily for podcasts. Right. But when you see 2 Scottish guys on the Silly Goose Gang, I think that's one of those things that makes you go, "Oh, that's a little bit different." But we haven't figured out how to target and push it forward to the next level, which is where we've struggled with, because we're not, we're just nobody from nowhere. We're not, so.
Well, yeah, but that's all. I remember, because I did I used to coach in a music marketing company, and I would deal with musicians who were trying to promote their own music online. And there was one lady, because I was teaching them about social media, creating content, putting themselves out there, do live videos and all this stuff. And this precious English lady, actually, her and her husband, incredibly talented jazz players and singers. And she's a sweetheart, older lady. And she said, CJ, it's very difficult for me to do that because I am the shyest person in the world. Then I said, well, that's exactly what you need to do then. Go be the shyest person on the internet. And so I told her, you need to say that. You need to say, this is so hard for me to do. And you need to write that. This is so difficult for me to do. I'm the shyest person on the internet. And people are going to say, ooh, let me listen. And if you say, we're just a couple of Scots trying to talk to as many interesting people as possible. Don't be creative, be clear. You know what I mean? Because it's like, yeah, we're just the Silly Goose Gang, just a couple of Scots trying to talk to as many interesting people as possible.
That's a new tagline. That is. We'll send all the royalties.
Oh,
we'll give you the royalties. We'll give you the royalties.
Yeah, if you continue to hit up, popular people like a Mac or whatever, and you say this is Silly Goose Gang podcast. We're a couple of Scots who love your stuff, and we're just trying to talk to as many interesting people as possible. And then you say that to your audience, and they're like, well, I want to hear these two Scots talk to interesting people, because now it takes something they've already heard before, interest, that makes it more interesting. Because if Clint Emerson's talking to Tim Kennedy, okay, well, they're talking shop. Yeah. But we in America want to hear a couple of Scott guys get off on our popular social media influencers. So go the path of least resistance.
Yeah, makes sense.
Again, they don't have it. People are not going to put up any defenses for that. And it's already there. Anything can be marketed. Anything. If you can sell the most radical forms of Islam, anything can be marketed.
We've got a new tagline. Okay, we've got a new tagline. I do like that. It's funny because actually, it's funny how social media works in this way. So I don't really use Facebook anymore because I can't be bothered. There's a lot of negativity on there. I prefer Instagram, but I went on another day and I was just scrolling through, having lunch or whatever, and somebody had shared one of your quotes. And that's so fucking, and it was a really fucking, and I meant to save it and I didn't. I forgot and I can't find it now. It was something that I. When obviously the Metal Motivator, so you go, okay, this is a heavy metal guy. And it was somebody that was not into metal at all. Just not at all. And I can't remember who it was, but it was somebody I went, fucking hell, why would... But it was a really, really good quote. So, I think your reach does get out there.
At some point, people are just, they don't care about the metal thing anymore. I just follow CJ. It's just CJ. Because if you listen to my videos, it's just like this. I'm not... talking like a wrestler or anything like that. So there's no shtick to it. It's not a gag or that kind of thing. But I think you guys could do really, really well, everything is already there. You don't need to add anything to yourselves. It's just pushing that out there. But get back on Facebook, man, because everybody's got a Facebook account. You've got more access to showing things. But like if you follow my personal Facebook page, you go through all my posts, man, it is nothing but positive, not just all like positive thinking, so to speak, but I mean, I'm real big into dog training. So you'll see my dog doing all kinds of cool, badass German Shepherd doing cool stuff, or, just always sharing positive things. And I don't give a fuck who's bringing their negative energy in there. I'm here. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm going to clear the room. We're going to, we can make it. You determine what the temperature is going to be wherever you are. Like one lady had said to me earlier on one of my posts, I was talking about not letting negativity take up residence in your mind. And she goes, yeah. And don't forget, you gotta like my posts need to be qualified. She goes, yeah, but I always tell people I don't want to die the death of 1,000 qualifications. So yeah, there's all kinds of other things we could say, but it's a goddamn meme. Holy shit. Just get the point. We don't need your addendum here, you know? And so she goes in about, well, you know, you got to be careful of the negative people and stuff. You need to really get some distance and stay away from them and all that. I said, listen, your best defense in life is a stronger you. You don't need better places to hide. Because if you're a strong mind, you're not going to give a shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're going to change the environment. You're going to be the force of life. And that's what we need. You can't be running. You got to engage. That's where the fight is. That's where the fun is. That's where their bloodletting is happening. That's where people are being disemboweled at the front lines. That's where all the war is engaged. And that's exactly where you guys need to be. It's exactly where Mac needs to be. It's exactly where I need to be and anybody else who's listening. Be the positive force of life. Not just a bunch of fluff. You know, it doesn't have to be just rainbows and sunshine that you're blowing up the backside of everyone's blessed assurance. It can be just straightforward, realistic, confronting life, living with a healthy aggression, positive life domination, with governorship and mastery, and showing people how a life is supposed to be lived. And damn everybody else, that's on them. Because now they know they sound like, what was the stinky word you used?
Boufin.
They know they sound that way, right? They know they sound that way now.
Yeah.
And to hell with them, man.
Yeah, one of the things, you know, we've said this a few times in the podcast, or I've said it because I don't care if I get heat for it, but we have a problem in Scotland where, and it goes back to the clan mentality of people don't really want to see, they might say they want to see you succeed. They don't really want to see you succeed. No. So that's why I'm trying to think now. Every time we've asked, you know, we've had, you know, we were lucky in the beginning when we started. We had some, you know, pretty impressive friends. You know, Ian Mackey was an Olympian, as a friend of ours. You know, a few guys who own gyms and hold some powerlifting records, or you know, whatever. Nobody that we've asked that's Scottish, that's even semi-famous, has any interest in doing it. No, and very few people share it or comment on the podcast at all. It's all comes from America. So, you know, people have asked before, you know, one of Ali's friends, you know, why don't you have more British Special Forces guys on? We'd love to. They don't want to talk to us. You know, Jason Gardner, Clint Emerson, Will Willis, those guys fucking love it. They you know, they want to come on and speak to us. So Scotland is a strange place for that sort of behavior.
It's probably common also in the UK. I imagine in Ireland the same thing, because it's, what is it, the Bible verse, the prophet is welcome anywhere but in their hometown. Right? Yeah,
100%.
Got to go somewhere else to be.
I like that. I like that.
Now, do you guys create like clips and things from your interviews?
Do you know what?
What the fuck?
We have done. We have done. The problem is, and this is my excuse now, I am crazy busy at the minute. So I run 2 businesses, do this, and I have an extreme iron distance triathlon in June. So I am busy. So we do, you know, if there is a little bit in a podcast, I will try and remember the time, make a clip to you know, and those clips generally do really, really well. That's on me. That's my problem. So
I would really encourage you guys, you know, and it's not a difficult process to do. If you go to like you've probably seen it on my Instagram profile. Most of my clips are from my videos. Of my teaching videos, but it's the same difference. And they're just a minute long. So because I don't want to go into that Instagram, you know, IGTV.
Yeah, we found that as well. Yeah, we found that as well.
The Badassery podcast, I do that way, but I'd like, if I can keep something in a minute, I'm good because it just keeps it on the feed. And then there's a little site called wave.co, WAVVE.
Yeah.
And you just upload, you can upload the audio and it'll create captions for you. There's probably other services that do the same thing, but you can also do them yourself. But yeah, stuff like that, key clips, key things, you know, people are like, damn, because it gives them a taste of it.
Yeah. We did one with Jason Gardner, who was a Command Master Chief in the Navy SEALs, and I think you might appreciate this as well, CJ. He was telling a story, and we clipped into exactly 1 minute. We got it perfect and put it up, and it for us it blew up relatively viral. But his quote was, it was like 1991, 92, I think he said, wasn't it, Chris? But he was in Somalia round about the time of Black Hawk Down and everything that was going on with that. And he said the Somalian warlords were like proper Mad Max style, with like roll cages and heavy anti-aircraft guns just welded on. Right. And he said the SEALs were on one side of the airport, the rebels were on the other side. And he said all they heard coming over from like behind this like hangar as it was coming round, and it was basically they had bolted down like a 4-gun anti-aircraft gun to the back of a flatbed. And in Jason Gardner's, he went, and all we heard was like the thud, 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 like the double bass drum of a Slayer song. Like, yes! It was amazing. And it was like the coolest thing we've ever heard. Yeah. It was like just that noise of the double guns going. But yeah, it's so true. Those 1 minute clips do massive views compared to, as you say, the full videos, because people don't always have time to sit down. We appreciate that and watch or listen for, you know, an hour and a half or 2 hours, no matter who the guest is, you know. But those little 1 minutes definitely look like a good way to get people in and seeing what we're doing.
Yeah. I would encourage it. And you know, even after this brief conversation, I'll have to jump off. Forgive me. I just realized what time it was. But I would really encourage it, because I think there's life in what you're doing, and it has potential to grow.
What we've said as well as you know, it's not that we've never taken it seriously, but it was never supposed to get this far. So we're just like, you know, it's just like, holy shit,
something to do during lockdown.
Pat McNamara, exactly what it was, you know. And it's like, you know, Clint Emerson's agreed to speak to us. Fuck, okay. Or Jack Carr's agreed to speak to us. Fuck, Pat McNamara. What the fuck? At some point, we have said we probably do need to get a little bit more serious and really push it. And where can we take it? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, because what you can do is if you're featuring these guys and it's a great clip of them, then you tag them and they're going to share it.
Yeah, they always do. Yeah, because this is one thing. You know, you would. I can't even remember what you said now, because there's a lot been said now. But one of the things that we realize is whoever you're talking to, you know, some really, you know, amazing guys. They're all humans. You know, whether it was guys who've been in the FBI or Pat or, you know, whoever they are, they're all human beings, and they all have their own things. And everybody's been super nice. So it's you know, we're all just people trying to do our own thing, and that's the thing that we've taken.
But hey, all those badasses you've had on here, nobody's been as excited about your project than me.
I'm awesome. Definitely going to pick your brain at some point. See, you know?
Like none of these other guys sat down and was like talking to us about targeting our audiences and growing our shit.
Man, I will listen to this. And
that's the Metal Motivator. You got to hook it up. I'm teasing.
No. Before we go, I know you say you have to go, so I want to talk to you briefly about metal. So what's the, you know, I'm one of those casual metal fans, so I like some Slayer songs, some Metallica songs, you know, things like, you know, I don't like an awful lot, but when I did a 1.5 mile sprint this morning, it was Slayer and it's always some kind of Monster Metallica. I always have that on because it gets me really pumped. So what is it about a metal music in particular that gets you going?
Well, it's going to vary, obviously, because we'll get questions. Well, what's the most metal motivating song, or what's the most? Yeah, I mean, it depends on the day. I love hardcore. I love classic thrash, like the Kill 'Em All album. But I love contemporary stuff. I love what Overkill's been doing for the past few years. I love Madball. I love Hatebreed. Those are all go-to motivational stuff, but classic Judas Priest, Slayer, of course, Pantera. Like to me, one of my favorite, just straight up metal albums is Reinventing the Steel by Pantera. It's just, there's no wasted space on that album from beginning to end. There's no there's no like, which song would you remove, from that album. But Kill 'Em All is that way. Screaming for Vengeance, Judas Priest is that way. Number of the Beast, Iron Maiden is that way, and many, many, many other albums. But yeah, man. One of the shirts I sell is says, motivated by metal. Another one says my blood type is metal. Another one says eat, drink, and be metal. And another one says my self-talk is metal. So it actually came from something Mac said. Mac in one of our interviews said, we were talking to each other. He says, yeah, metal is always playing in my mind, because he got through the long walk. You've heard of the long walk in Selection.
Yep.
For the unit. He got through that because he got one song stuck in his head, which is Nobody Rides for Free by the band Rat. So he just had that stuck on loop and got him through that walk. And so out of that, I just said my self-talk is metal. But
yeah, that's genuinely some kind of monster. And I love that when it comes in, some kind of monster. And I just
oh yeah.
And then I go crazy.
Yeah. Who takes classical music to the gym,
Yeah. So I like to try and buy things off anybody who's been on the podcast. So I'll have a look at some of your t-shirts.
Oh, sure, cool.
Get some over here in Scotland.
Yeah, definitely. And I know I don't even have a watch on, so I have no idea what time it is. How long will be?
It's just gone after 9. We'll let you get away. I know you've said a couple of times, CJ, your time needs to go. So we will, just before we very briefly do, we've mentioned it a few times, but if you want to throw out any social media where people can find you and follow you, and we'll tag it in our notes as well.
Oh, great. Yeah. You can follow me on Instagram at Metal Motivator. And then Facebook is Metal Motivation. And you just go metalmotivation.com and get to everything. So
yeah. Awesome.
There's got articles and videos and all kinds of stuff there, so you'll dig it.
It's been
and I'm sorry, at University of Badassery.
Yeah, of course.
University of Badassery.
Yeah, it's genuinely been one of the most informative podcasts. I don't think we said much, but that was fantastic. Genuinely took a lot. So yeah, we'll certainly keep in touch. It's been great, and we appreciate your input, man, and we love what you're doing. And yeah.
No, we're behind you, man. We'll just we'll keep up with you.
We can't
share.
fail.
Yeah, share. I'll once you guys get everything published and stuff, I'll share the hell out of it. So
awesome.
Yes. Awesome. Well,
cool.
Episode 64 of the Silly Goose Gang with CJ Ortiz, the Metal Motivator. Thank you for your time, sir, and we'll call this episode done and dusted.
The Silly Goose Gang Podcast.